Hello, my friends, and welcome back. Today we have some shocking news. We just got the February CPI number in, and it is red hot. So I want to go over to some articles right away and show you folks what's going on here. Here's a article from this morning, USA Today. Inflation climbed at the fastest pace since 1982 in February, as consumer prices rose 7.9% on higher gas, CPI report shows. So this report just came in this morning at 8:30. And if you recall, the CPI month end January was 7.5%. So what does that mean for us in terms of where we stand on historically where CPI has been? So here we are at the end of the chart here, February 2022. You see that 7.9%, and you see where we were April 2020, right after the pandemic started. So we've been just a moonshot right there with inflation, right? And so I bring this chart up because I always go back to within the last 50 years, anytime inflation has been over 5%, we enter into a recession. And I just want to warn people, this isn't a crystal ball, but it's a good indication as to where things could be heading, right? I point back to here in June of 2008 during the GFC, right? We were at 4.9% inflation, right? And what happened? This gray section here denotes we were in a recession, right? Back here, we didn't even have to, in May, we didn't even need to get to 5%, and we entered into a recession. Here back in the October of 1990, we were at 6.3% CPI, and we entered into a recession, right? So you could go back in time and take a look at that all the way back to the 1970s, where we were at 5.8% CPI, and we entered into a recession, right? So, for the past 50 years, you can look at history and see what that means for us, right? So it's just a cautionary tale there, right? So does the Fed have a plan to curb inflation? Barron's doesn't think so. The Fed doesn't have a playbook to tame inflation while avoiding a recession. And this was just recently in February 18th of this year. Why is that? It's because the Fed is between a rock and a hard place right now, right? If they increase rates, they are going to slow the economy. They are going to slow investments that companies make into growing their business, into expanding their facilities, into adding more jobs to the economy, right? So if the Fed increases the rate, that's going to have an impact, and a resulting impact that's going to slow the economy down. The other part of that is the government has been borrowing so much money that if they increase rates, it becomes more expensive for the government to pay back that interest on the debt that they have accrued, right? So the Fed has a big problem right now with their credibility, right? If they do nothing, inflation's going to continue to increase. If they increase rates, they run the risk of slowing the economy as well as increasing the interest payments on the debt that the US government owns. So we have this problem with what's been dubbed monetizing the debt, where the US government has accrued a lot of debt recently as a result of the pandemic. And that creates some interesting dynamics here. So I want to go over the terminology, debt monetization. So Wikipedia defines it as debt monetization, or monetary financing, is the practice of a government borrowing money from a central bank, in this case, the Federal Reserve, right? The central bank is Federal Reserve, to finance public spending. And we've seen that over the last 2 years, post-pandemic, to be able to bring the economy back online, and a lot of stimmy checks that have gone out to individuals. So reading on, the central banks, again, the Federal Reserve, who buys that government debt, are essentially creating new money in the process to do so. So is that good or bad? Well, some countries think it's bad. So continuing on, it is prohibited, right? This practice is prohibited in many countries, because it is considered dangerous due to the risk of creating runaway inflation, right? And so I want to point back to this chart here. What have we had since that money printing started, right? After the pandemic or during the pandemic, we've had nothing but runaway inflation, right, for the past 2 years. So to prevent inflation getting out of hand, central banks, again, the Federal Reserve, often keeps a close eye on CPI as to not create too much new money. Okay, that's good, but now they're stuck between that rock and a hard place where now they have to do something, right? I'm going to contend that they're going to, continue to do nothing here, right? So, because why? Because this right here, if the Fed increases rates, it also puts pressure on the consumer in terms of higher mortgage rates, right? This article here from Finance and Commerce, they go into detail on higher mortgage rates add to the home buying challenge, right? Not only for home buyers, but also for the construction companies that are looking to help and add more units, more homes to the market so that more people can buy into those. But that's difficult to do for construction companies if their cost of money continues to go up, if the Federal Reserve raises rates. So you're seeing how this conundrum is playing out. What we already have here in this country is already a slowing economy. The Fed knows it. And they know if they increase interest rates, they're just going to continue to exacerbate that problem of a slowing economy. And they've already told us the economy is slowing, right? I'm going to go to this FOMC chart here where they talk about the economic projections for growth rate. So this is the growth rate of the GDP, right? So here we were back in 2021, and again, this is the growth rate. So every year thereafter, they are saying the growth rate is getting smaller and smaller. So the economy is still growing. It's just growing at a slower pace, right? So the economy is slowing down. And so they know this. So again, it's that conundrum they are in with increasing rates or doing nothing. And so this last article here, this was a CNBC news article, and this was back in August of 2020. And so the Fed already told us back in 2020 their plan. Powell announces new Fed approach to inflation that could keep rates lower for longer. He already told us he was going to keep rates low, right? Back in 2020. He has no choice. He has no choice in this. The Federal Reserve announced a major policy shift Thursday, this was back in 2020, saying it is willing to allow inflation to run hotter, so let inflation continue to rise, hotter than normal in order to support the labor market and broader economy, right? He needs to support the labor market because, as I explained, if he increases rates, that's going to curb investments that businesses make to expand their facilities or create new facilities and hire on new workers, right? So that's what he's trying to prevent, is curbing that decrease in the labor market. So the moral of the story here today is, with these new numbers out for February, for all of us, expect inflation to continue to run hot, right? I don't expect anything different this year. March numbers are going to come in, north of 8%, guaranteed. So just prepare for that. And I just wanted to share this with my viewers to try to help them. Thank you very much.